Yeah, thank you very much, Tas, and as well as Emily for inviting me, and I think the whole team from the Earth Institute and all the members. It's really a pleasure to join you this morning and talk a little bit about what I do in Proudly Made in the fellowship, and the teaching and the research. Yeah, just to share a little bit what I do here. So as I was telling Tas there, I began in the fellowship in 2017. So this is like my third year running. And so I'm basically working for UCD, but also for Proudly Made in Africa, which is a social enterprise kind of NGO. So I will be talking about, what I do, the teaching and the research as a case may be. So yeah, if we can go to the next. Yeah, so I will talk a little bit in terms of the agenda. I will talk about the origins of the fellowship, and then I will describe in terms of the teaching and the research, what do we do with the students in terms of changing their fixed ideas and the perception, and then look at the academic, business, and the development community, how we engage with these three pillars of the fellowship as well. Yeah, we can say next one. So the fellowship began. Actually, it began with the Proudly Made in Africa, which is a non-government organization, and I think for Ireland, of course, one of the sectors that is really prominent, especially with the development cooperation, is the non-governmental sector. So Proudly Made in Africa is coming from that background, from the NGO sector. And so I'm good for the next slide there. Okay, so the organization itself is based in Ireland, in Dublin, and it began in 2008, Made in Africa. It began as value added in Africa. And after a few years, after a few years later, it was then transformed into Proudly Made in Africa as part of the development of the organization. But it began as a value added in Africa. And I will, in the next slide, I will explain how this organization came about, and then, of course, then its later engagement with the UCD. Yeah. So the next slide. Yeah. So the founder was Connor O'Keefe. So Connor O'Keefe founded this organization, the gentleman in the middle there. And so here they are showcasing some products from Africa. So that was a founder and the other person that was working with him. And there was a business person from Africa, so they were showcasing the product from Africa. But I want to discuss more about Connor and how he came out with the idea of value added in Africa and the Proudly Made in Africa later on. So the next slide. Next slide. Yeah. So basically, Connor was a development person working in Africa. He has worked in several countries, but this time he was in Africa. And why he came out with the idea of value added in Africa was he was puzzled, why he was there trying to help people with development, basically bring development. He saw these tons and bags of cashew nuts being taken from Mozambique and being brought to Europe. And when he was investigating it, he found that they were really sold at a very cheap price in Mozambique. But when he remembered back in Ireland, how expensive it is to buy the cashew nuts, then something, a moment of enlightenment came to him that, here we are doing development assistance, but we are really robbing these people of their resources, because they have these resources, they're bought here cheap, and we buy them expensive in Ireland, and they don't get that value from their products. So from that moment, he came back and he went straight ahead of forming the value added in Africa program and the project. But still, it was still in the space of development field. So he got funding mostly from Irish Aid, just like any other NGOs, and he began operating to support basically African producers to sell manufactured products to the European market, to the Irish market, and to the other European countries' market. Yeah, I'm good for the next slide. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so that was the puzzle there. Basically, he was in Mozambique. These guys are doing huge amounts of cashew nuts, and they're brought to Ireland. And actually, with cashew nuts, you really don't have to process quite a lot. It's just really packaging. But then the price difference between Mozambique and Ireland was huge, and the guys in Mozambique were not getting all the value that they were deserving. So, sort of value in Africa. We can go to the next slide. Okay. Yeah. So, and the other one as well. I can click there as well. Yeah, maybe you can just click next. I think it will give the photo there. Yeah, so basically, Connor then founded this value added in Africa, and so basically the idea was to sell manufactured ready to use products. Yeah, rather than African people selling raw material. Producers in Africa, helping them, advising them how they can package everything for the European market, and then was trying to find access here in the European market. So basically, he was dealing with business, and then on the other side here in Europe, he had to deal with the business and the general public to convince them in Africa. So that was his main challenge. But the idea, of course, was to create these products. Hello.
Sorry, David, your voice is breaking up a little bit. Could you try turning off your video, maybe?
My voice is breaking. Okay.
Just a little bit, yeah. It's okay. We can
maybe I can turn off my video. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me see if I can turn off my video. Yeah. Maybe here it is. Yes. So I think maybe it might be better. Yeah, maybe it might be better there now.
That's much better, thanks, David. Yeah, that's great.
That's much better, yeah. So basically, that's what Connor decided to do, to try to help African do the ready-made products and find access to market. Now, the challenge was, of course, to deal with the business people in Europe and to deal with the public in Europe, basically to try to convince them to buy these products. But what he found is that in Africa, there was already capacity to actually produce manufactured products that could be sold to the European market. So we are good for the next slide. Yeah, you can click again. There's some photo there. Yeah, so products had to be made in Africa and brought to Europe, and I think the challenge, of course, was basically to get the guys in Europe to adapt this product and sell them to the market, but also, of course, to work with the African producers to be able to produce high quality products, because for European market you need high quality products that are safe as well. So the health and safety issues, all the standards, that was the challenge in Africa. But then for Europe was to convince these guys to buy products and sell them in the European markets. Yeah. So okay. So we are ready for the next slide. Yeah. So that was the challenge I was saying there. Okay. Yep. So I think this also describes the same issue there, that he then Proudly Made in Africa became the facilitator between the European producers and between the European suppliers and the retailers and the African producers. Yeah. So we are good for the next slide. What they came to realize was that education was the key element. Awareness and education was the key elements to teach, of course, the business people in Europe and the consumers in Europe. But in addition to that, what they found was that long term, it could be better to work with people that are in the field of business, so that it is easier for African products to be brought to Europe. So of course, already for the general public, you had already movements like fair trade, which are really promoting products from Africa and other countries, but maybe not in manufactured products. So they try to venture into that as well to educate the general public. But I think what they found would be good and sustainable for the African products will be to educate the future business leaders, future buyers and sellers. And that's why they created this fellowship with the UCD to try to begin to work with the business students and the business lecturers to include Africa in the learning of business. So that includes, learning in business in general, but also maybe raising awareness of the products that are in Africa and how they can bring development, sustainable development in Africa, but also when we talk about sustainable development as a global issue as well. So that's why they brought this idea to UCD, and then we began the fellowship. Yeah, we are good for the next bit. Yeah, so UCD, then UCD Business School partnered with Proudly Made in Africa, and of course the idea was to bring Africa and teaching about Africa in the business schools. So basically, Africa is a market, and Africa is a place where there is a products that people could buy and sell as well. Yeah, we are good for the next slide. Yeah, so I think in terms of the engagement, we work with the lecturers basically to prepare them or to kind of bring awareness, but also to encourage them to include Africa in their teaching. So basically, I would team up with the business lecturers, and maybe we work with them for 1 year or 2 years, or even 3 years, co-teaching. Meanwhile, we teach the students, I teach the students, but at the same time, the lecturers are getting the content of what they might need to include when they will be teaching themselves on Africa, or even taking just elements of the African discussion. So the key themes that we deal with are business and society. So basically teaching them, the business and how society, etc., is developed in Africa, but also Africa as a market. And then we also have opportunity to include the issue of sustainable development. So I will be describing later on how sustainable development especially comes in, because most of the problem with African countries and other poor countries in Latin America, even Asia, is the way they are in the international system. So as I was saying at the beginning, most of these countries, they've been made to produce raw material for the other markets. So that doesn't give them sufficient money and a value from the international trade. So as a global problem, that is one of the global problem. And this problem goes far back, from colonialism, and then of course perception issues, but also in between there is of course the political issues as well, how the world was, especially during the Cold War, where people couldn't trade from countries to countries. But now with the openness, we still have to change that old system that is in place. And of course, now when we're talking about sustainable development, with the UN giving out sustainable development goals, eradicating poverty, we cannot eradicate poverty in Africa, in Asia, and other countries if those countries don't get enough value from the international trade that we we are organized. So I think that's why sustainable development, when we teach about Africa in these courses, becomes one of the key elements. And then we build a cooperation with the academics, and I'm glad that since this year I joined the Earth Institute to increase the network, because mostly we work with the business school, but now we are with the Earth Institute, so there's more members collaborating. I think this year we proposed as well the priority project for the Earth Institute to work with other colleagues, looking at the international trade in Africa, how the producers are doing it, and how these things are related within the international system, and how on a global level we can work on that and tackle poverty, but also tackle climate change, etc. So we propose that. But we work also with businesses. So the good thing is that the Proudly Made in Africa, they have a big base of businesses in Africa, and also some of the business here. So those are part of the network that we engage with as well in terms of the academic field. But also we engage with the development community. So as you know, Ireland, all these big organizations, Trocare, Concern, they are promoting development in Africa, etc. So with them, we work with them in the network called IDEA. So basically, Ireland Development Education Association. So they are all funded mostly by Irish Aid, but also maybe from the public. And they discuss about development issues. So we bring the business angle to this field. But also I think there is something called Development Studies Association of Ireland. So there as well, we work with the people. But we, from Proudly Made in Africa, we bring the development angle. So working from the university and being with the business and being with the community, so we are really trying to get all that synergy from all these pillars of business, of society, and the development. Yeah. So we are good to go. Thanks. So UCD actually, where UCD adapted this fellowship, already the business school, they were kind of forward-looking, looking at the issues of business and society, shared value, as UCD Business School will be one of the leaders in the shared value initiative in Ireland, but also sustainable development would be one of the key issues that the business school is keen. So they adapted this fellowship. So in UCD, you know, there is a class there which, like, every UCD business school student has to take, and this would be like business and society class. And the Proudly Made in Africa Fellowship has the big opportunity to teach in this class. So basically, every year we teach about 600 students in UCD from the business school, from the business school. So that is UCD, maybe 600, maybe 800 students with other departments of business. But then we go to other business schools as well, in other colleges as well. So at the moment we are working in 16 business schools in Ireland. We go as far as Queen's University in Belfast, Letterkenny, and of course a larger part in Dublin, and of course the other bigger universities as well. We engage with them. Yeah. Thanks. So yeah. So when we offer this course, of course we come from business and the development. So basically we also bring new approaches to learning in terms of business, because the people from the development, they especially development education, they have unique ways of engaging with the students. So we bring that element as well in our teaching in the business schools. So there is a lot of role play, so that people can really understand, if we are talking about people producing in Africa, how could that be? And so we put everybody in that role play, simulation, and we do our teaching in that way. But also we include other innovative ways of teaching business, so that, you know, we bring value to the students. Yeah. So yeah. So talking about Africa, of course, we have to build a business case to the students. We have to build a business case to the students. Now, most often when I go to the business students teaching, one of the typical questions I would ask, for example, here is the Maasai people in Africa, in Kenya, in Tanzania. What do you think about them? Are they poor? Are they rich? Can you find something that you can sell to this market, to these people? Yeah. So I don't know if I can ask even yourselves from the audience there. What do you think about these people? Are they rich, poor, middle class, or they might be millionaire? Maybe. What are the guesses there? Yeah. Maybe I can pick Tas there. Tas, what would be your guess?
It's very hard to say because I don't have the context to know and understand that from their point of view. So
yeah, just a good guess. Just a guess from observation, without being as I tell students, without being very philosophical.
Yeah, so they look happy.
They look happy. Good.
Which is definitely a good thing. But yeah, it's really hard to guess their economic situation.
Their economic status, yeah. If you were to guess, where would you place them?
Well, in somewhere in the middle, I guess.
Somewhere in the middle. No, you are very generous. You are very generous. Most students, they would say, you see, they have no shoes. These guys, they are good, they are happy, yes, but you see, they have no shoes, so most likely they are poor. Yeah, most of them would say, they are poor. But you put them in the middle, which is okay. In fact, some of them might be higher up because these people would have cows. They have a lot of cows. Yeah. And in Africa, with a cow, you can transform your cow into money anytime. And you can even put it as a collateral for getting a loan or something like that with other people. So the Maasai, they would have sizable amount of cows. So because of that, then they are rich. Some of them would be even millionaires in the local currencies. So basically, they are rich. Now, what is interesting is that there is a company from Ireland that is selling products, really making a huge amount of money business in Africa with the Maasai. And then the question is, what do you think this company is selling to the Maasai from Ireland?
Maybe the material, the clothes.
The material?
The cloth and clothes.
The cloth, yeah. So the cloth, yeah. The cloth they make themselves. So there's a couple of guesses that can be put there. But that company, they sell to the Maasai. They sell them veterinary medicine because they have cows. And they want to keep their cows alive, so they sell the veterinary medicine. So with the students, this is how we build a business case to them that, maybe sometimes you might think that there is no market in Africa. But, if you look not very far, there is a market and there is already some companies that are making business in the continent. So we go on to the next slide. We have the growth of the middle class. So the economies are growing, and we have the growth of the middle class in Africa. And and I think this is now we tie in with the development in Africa in terms of change, because many people would think, okay, Africa, there is no peace, there is a lot of wars, there is a lot of poverty, but you can say that is the idea of Africa in 1980s. Africa early 1990s. But from 1990s onwards, especially after the end of the Cold War, Africa has transformed quite a lot. It has transformed quite a lot. And many people with the business, etc., they don't take cognition of that change. Even Europe, actually, they were really surprised how China went to Africa, and suddenly China was making huge amounts of money, because Europe, for some time, they were stuck with the idea that Africa is an unpeaceful place, is a poor place. But so it's basically tracking the changes. So we bring the students up to speed about the changes, and we highlight to them the market in the continent. So I can go to the next slide. And then, of course, then there is other markets. We even have billionaires in Africa. Billionaires in Africa, and one of the billionaires there, it would be a gentleman called Mo Ibrahim. So Mo Ibrahim was the first person to set up a mobile phone company in Africa. So again, he was working for BT, British Telecommunication, as an engineer. He's originally from Sudan. He told BT that he's sensing a big market in Africa in terms of mobile phone. If they could invest there, but they said we don't think that Africa, Africa and the mobile phone, it might not be a good market for us. So he found his own money, set up a company in Africa, and before long, he became a billionaire. He became a billionaire because it's such a huge market in Africa. And Africa now is leading in terms of the mobile money transfer through the phone, mobile banking. Africa is leading. And I think, again, many students wouldn't take recognition of these developments in the continent. So we really try to bring them up to speed, and then we say, you can engage with this market, etc., etc. So we are good for the next slide. And then, of course, the various changes there with ICT, etc., that's happening like a very fast change. Also, the population in Africa is growing. So there's a huge market in terms of the growth of the population and the changes that are happening in the continent. Leave alone the food industry, where Africa still has a huge amount of land that has not been used for agriculture. And of course, then the other story about minerals, etc. But then tourism, because with many countries becoming peaceful, then there is a lot of tourism to happen in Africa. So thank you. I'm good for the next slide. Yeah, the next one. Okay.
David, I think this is the last slide.
Is the last one?
Yes.
Okay. There should be, okay. There should be more. If you just click it doesn't go. That's the last one. Okay. All right. Okay, so.
Can you say what you were planning to say without the slides?
Yeah, so okay, maybe some of the slides maybe have been cut there. So that's how we make the business case for the students. And once we make the business case, then of course there's the issue of sustainable development. So how do we bring that in? And we most normally do that with a supply chain. Yeah. So we have a supply chain of the nut bar. Yeah. So we have a supply chain of the nut bar. The nut bar is bought here, students, you go to the shop, you buy a nut bar, it's sold at €1 standard price. Now, if we analyze the supply chain and the producers, so you have the people from Africa producing the nuts that are making the nut bar. Now, if you analyze, you see, for example, the seed grower, actually they get about 5 cents out of that supply chain. Then you have the export company from Africa, they get some money. But if you analyze the supply chain, you see Africa only gets 10 cents out of the 100 cents that we buy the nut bar. And a big amount of money is gotten by the guy who is making the manufacturing. So the manufacturer gets about 30% of the supply chain. So normally with that supply chain exercise, we would put students to be the different players in that supply chain. So they will guess, and then later on we show how that works. So we use the supply chain to analyze that. And I think at the end of the day, we explain, for example, to increase the value. For example, there is a fair trade. For example, they help to increase the value. So we show the fair trade and how they help. But there is nothing that replaces manufacturing. Manufacturing is the one that is best for people in Africa and other places to get their fair share in the global market. So and then we say, okay, so we are now talking about, you know, us all living in the world, sharing the world, and sustainable development. So if at all we have to end poverty in Africa, if at all we have to fight climate change and all these things, we might need to have sustainability, and that will involve us including and buying fair from the African continent. So we do that, and then we feed in basically the market argument for Africa, but also we bring in the sustainable development argument for the continent. Now with Africa, then students will ask us, like, you know, Africa, but there is issues with the infrastructure, there is issues with maybe wars, there is issues with the corruption, there is issues with that. So we say, you know, all that is part of the dynamic, but also we have to take into account that Africa is changing quite a lot. But also then we have to go back and see the sources of these issues. And I think there, when we say the source of these issues, we go back, for example, to what we had, for example, slavery, but also colonialism. Colonialism was a big part of development in Africa. And then when we talk about colonialism, there is other interesting perspectives that are entering there, because now we are talking about decolonization as part of the bigger agenda as well, because most of these countries got independence. We live in a politically independent world, but there is still a lot of colonial systems, including the international trade system. So it's kind of, it has a colonial hangover, a colonial influence that's still there. And then we find that nowadays we can already begin to talk about racism, a very difficult subject to include in terms of discussing business and discussing other things. In fact, we were even talking with other partners in the development sector. They say, of course, we teach a lot about, you know, fairness, assisting African countries. But one thing we find difficult is to talk about racism. But I think since this year with Black Lives Matter, it's becoming a little bit easier to talk about racism. And I think from our angle as business people that advocate for business and development, when we talk about colonialism, and that we still have to continue to decolonize, including, of course, now people are talking about decolonizing the curriculum, decolonizing everything. One of the factors that could be entered in this discussion is racism, because actually racism was at the core of creating colonialism itself, which then created the other things as well. So I think now we are seeing opportunity to as well discuss about racism. And this is where we are at the moment. So basically working with the lecturers, working with the students, but also bringing in issues that are key in this field, including the sustainable development issues. But now, as I was saying about colonization, decolonization, and of course, there's opportunity to talk about racism. Yeah. So I think I will end there, so that then maybe if there is questions, and I can be able to take those. Yeah.
Thanks very much indeed, David. That was fantastic. Really interesting to be challenging and changing perceptions in that way, and really, I think it's a really nice, it's a smart idea to focus on the next generation of business leaders in the way that you have. I think it's really interesting strategy. And I was curious a bit about that, whether there's also parallel work reaching out directly to businesses, and also in terms of the wider public perceptions. Obviously these kinds of ideas are not really aired much in the mainstream media. I sometimes listen to the BBC World Service, and they have quite a lot. I think they've got a regular slot on business in Africa. So you know, you can find out about it if you go looking, but it's not something that comes your way through the mainstream media. Are you aware of kind of active efforts to change that situation as well?
Yes, we are active, and I think, of course, I think China is the one that kind of brought awareness, especially for the European countries. So now everybody is taking interest in the subject of business in Africa. So, and I think it's interesting because on one hand, all the PwC and the KPMG and all the business, in the last 10 years, they've really taken recognition of Africa as an opportunity. And I think that came with China, that when China went, they were making profits and everybody was like, we are a bit late there. But that awareness hasn't filtered in the business schools. So the business schools are lagging in terms of the adapting the Africa. So we bring that to the business school. But I think then the big problem with the outside, when they talk about Africa and the business opportunity in Africa, is the framework in which this is being talked about. And I think there is a lack of maybe talking about sustainable development, sustainability, critiquing the international trade system in terms of African countries being exploited. So I think there is a lot of nuances that need to be entered in the public discussion, the media, but also in the schools, of course, bringing that. And of course, then we find that we have to work with partners in the business sector, the development sector. So people like NGOs like Concern, Trocare, because again, they are thinking about, and the image that they put about Africa is detrimental to the continent and the future. So I think there is a couple of opportunities and the challenges in engaging in these publics that we have.
That's a really interesting point. The detrimental image that's presented by the charities there. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions or comments to bring?
No, that was really great presentation. Actually, I myself, beside the technical information, I got a new view about Africa. That was really fantastic to me. But
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Mona. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question for David? Okay, then we're just about to run out of time. Anyway, go ahead, Katrina.
I was just going to, what were maybe some of the plans for the fellowship going forward, and how it might evolve?
Yes. So at the moment, actually, is a manpower issue as well. So there is normally one fellow at a time. So there was Siobhan McGee, who finished her term, and now she's elsewhere. There is Penelope, Dr. Penelope Mzanihamo. She did the fellowship for maybe 2 years or so, and then I came. So so I think is really trying maybe to increase the manpower to the fellowship. But I think the way it works okay, because the idea is to work with the lecturers maybe and let them continue to work with the students and maybe themselves to continue including Africa. So hopefully, those that we might have a critical mass, especially maybe in the UCD Business School, also maybe in UCD, a critical mass of people that will continue to carry on the work. Otherwise, we might seek to be around to continue cultivating that critical mass as we go along. Maybe we might increase the fellowship, but I think the main issue will be to sustain this, hoping that those that have the lectures that we have worked with them, they can form a critical mass which will begin teaching Africa on themselves. And I think that will be ideal, because then it won't require the fellow to be present physically. So they will be doing that themselves, and the schools can adapt Africa and teach Africa and perhaps other places that are forgotten as well in the business curriculum. And I think based on that as well is really making links. Like we are very grateful to join, for example, the Nth Institute, where there is more colleagues from various places. So again, we are open for networking as well with other people if they want to include Africa in their teaching or etc. We are open to cooperation and of course doing research, etc. as well.
Great, thanks very much. If there are no further questions, then we might.
I have a point of information, Taz, if you're interested.
Sorry?
Paul, well, I have a point of information if you're interested.
Yes, please, yeah.
Yeah. So my discovery module, I just found out yesterday, didn't have enough core places for the sustainability degree, but I've made sure I've restructured that so that all the students can get in. But David teaches on that with me. He teaches on that with me. So actually, the lecture he gives on that discovery course will be in the sustainability degree in the first year.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I was going to say as well, actually, that business and society module that you mentioned as well, that you teach into is also on the curriculum for the sustainability students. For those of you that don't know, we've just launched a new degree program in sustainability, and it's got its first intake of just over 50 students this year. So it's exciting. We had an orientation session with them yesterday, and they'll be taking modules from the science, from the environmental science and engineering and agriculture point of view, but also from the social sciences, policy and law point of view, and also from sustainable business and economics point of view. So they'll have a mixed program where they get all those different perspectives, but with a focus on primary focus on one of them after their first year. So yeah, and that's fantastic, David, that you're teaching into that to bring that perspective.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, then we might leave it at that. And thanks very much, everyone, for coming. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next coffee morning.